The combat arena used energy blades, but the human girl brought her uncle's ancient chainsword. If you are not a heretic, then declare your city of origin. Leave a comment, a like, and subscribe to the Emperor's Glory. At the conclusion, rate this tale from 0 to 10. The Emperor protects. The energy blade hummed through the air, missing Kaida's neck by millimeters. The crowd of assembled Xenos erupted in disappointed clicks and chirps as she rolled backward, her worn Imperial Guard fatigues stark against the pristine arena floor. Pathetic, sneered Veltar, the Tau fire warrior whose plasma rifle had been confiscated for this honorable duel. His hooved feet danced across the polished metal as his energy blade carved elegant arcs through the recycled air. Your disgusted primitive species should have remained in the outer rim where you belong. Kaeda spat blood and adjusted her grip on the ancient weapon her uncle had smuggled aboard the diplomatic vessel. The chainsword looked like scrap metal next to the Tau's elegant technology. Rust stains on the ceramite housing, the adamantine teeth worn from decades of combat, the machine spirit's low growl barely audible. Every Xenos in the observation gallery was staring at it with a mixture of disgusted confusion and disgust. She'd tried to explain it was a relic, that Uncle Marcus had carried it through the Damocles Gulf campaign, but the translation protocols kept rendering machine spirit as malfunction and blessed weapon as defective tool. The human seems confused about proper combat protocols, announced the ethereal overseeing the exhibition match. His voice carried the subtle pheromone commands that made other Tau instantly attentive. Perhaps we should end this demonstration before someone gets injured unnecessarily. Commander Brightwing, the avian dignitary from the Korvac Republic, ruffled her chrome-tipped feathers nervously. This was meant to showcase our species' martial traditions in a controlled environment. The human child appears to be malfunctioning? Child. Kaeda was 19, a veteran of 3 compliance actions and the Orc incursion at Greystone 7. But to these long-lived Xenos, she might as well have been an infant. The diplomatic mission had been her first assignment with the rogue trader delegation. Supposed to be a milk run, cultural exchange, building bridges between species. Instead, she'd somehow ended up representing humanity's martial prowess against a fire warrior in single combat. The Tau circled her with textbook precision, his blue skin gleaming under the arena's artificial sunlight. I don't understand why your species insists on using such crude implements. That device appears to be partially organic. How can you trust something that might malfunction at any moment? Because, Kaeda said, thumbing the activation stud, you've never met a proper machine spirit. The chainsword roared to life with a sound like a caged predator finally unleashed. The adamantine teeth blurred into invisibility as they raced around the guide bar, and the growl became a howl that made every Xenos in the gallery step backward involuntarily. Even the ethereal's usual composure cracked slightly. Veltar hesitated for the first time since the duel began. What is that sound? Is your weapon powered by a trapped animal? Something like that. Kaeda settled into the combat stance Uncle Marcus had drilled into her before she could properly hold a lasgun. Low guard, wait forward, let the enemy commit first. The machine spirit's been sleeping for 3 months. You just woke it up. The fire warrior recovered his composure and launched into a textbook attack pattern. Feints high, strike low, maintain distance, use superior reach.
His energy blade whispered through sophisticated combat algorithms as precise as a chronometer. Kaeda met his first strike with the chainsword's spinning teeth. The energy blade shattered like spun glass. Veltar stared at the smoking hilt in his hand, his sophisticated weapon reduced to slag and sparking electronics. The arena fell silent except for the chainsword's satisfied purr. "Impossible!" breathed the ethereal. "Our energy matrices are designed to cut through any known material. What is that thing made of?" "Faith," Kaeda said simply, and lunged forward. What happened next would be discussed in xenology departments across 3 sectors for the next decade. The human girl moved like her ancestors had moved through Terra's desperate fury of something that had learned to kill or be killed before it learned to walk properly. She didn't fight like the other species. The Tau used elegant blade work passed down through generations of fire-caste warriors. The Korvac employed aerial superiority and precision strikes. The hulking Urson delegates favored overwhelming strength applied with mathematical efficiency. Kaeda fought like a cornered animal that had somehow learned to use tools. She caught Veltar's wrist as he tried to draw his backup knife, spun him around, and put the chainsword's teeth against his throat in one fluid motion that violated every principle of civilized combat the assembled Xenos understood. "Yield!" she panted, and the machine spirit's growl made the words sound like a prayer to some dark god. The fire warrior's eyes were wide with something the translation protocols couldn't quite interpret. Terror mixed with fascination, disgust mixed with unwilling respect. I yield." The ethereal's voice carried new harmonics, frequencies the other species present couldn't detect, but somehow felt in their bones. Most instructive. "Tell me, human child, where did your species develop such combat techniques?" Kaeda stepped back and let the chainsword idle, its machine spirit settling into a calm, satisfied rumble. "Same place we developed everything else, honored ethereal. Home. And where exactly is this home world of yours?" She smiled, and for the first time since boarding the diplomatic vessel, she felt like herself again. "Terra. They call it a death world, but we just call it home. Gravity's a bit heavy. Air's a bit thin. Everything wants to kill you, but the sunsets are beautiful." Commander Brightwing's translator struggled with several concepts simultaneously. "Death world? You evolved on a death world? That explains the chemical composition we detected. Your species naturally produces combat stimulants." "Adrenaline," Kaeda nodded. "Useful stuff. Keeps you alive when something bigger and nastier decides you look tasty." The Ursing delegate, a massive creature whose own homeworld was considered moderately dangerous, made a sound like an avalanche clearing its throat. "What kind of predators required your species to develop such extreme survival responses?" Kaeda thought about it seriously. Uncle Marcus always said honesty was the best policy with Xenos. They could usually smell lies anyway. "Well, there are the big cats. Some of them get up to about 300 kilos, hunt in packs, can leap about 15 meters horizontally. Then there are the bears, bigger than our ursine friends here, I think. The sharks, but those are only dangerous if you go in the water. Oh, and the humans. Humans prey on other humans? Sometimes. Depends on the circumstances. War, mostly, but sometimes just because resources get scarce. We're pretty good at killing each other when we need to." The silence that followed was the kind of silence that happens when someone casually mentions something that recontextualizes everything everyone thought they knew. The ethereal's pheromone output shifted again. Your species practices intraspecies predation as a survival mechanism? We call it war, Kaeda said helpfully, though I suppose from the outside it might look like predation. We've been doing it for about as long as we've existed. Got pretty good at it, too. She was trying to be diplomatic, but apparently the translation protocols were rendering her words as something significantly more disturbing than she intended. Several of the Xenos delegates were making distressed noises. "How long," asked Commander Brightwing, carefully, "has your species been engaged in continuous warfare?" Kaeda had to think about that one. Imperial dating was tricky, and she wasn't sure how to convert it to the standard galactic calendar these civilized species used. About 40,000 years, give or take a few millennia. Hard to keep accurate records when people keep trying to blow up your libraries. The Korvok's feathers went flat against her skull. 40,000 years of continuous warfare? Oh no, Kaeda laughed, sarcastic. That's just recorded history. Archaeological evidence suggests we were fighting wars for at least 100,000 years before we figured out writing. Probably longer. When the translation finished processing that statement, 3 of the Xenos delegates actually fainted. The ethereal's voice had lost all its harmonic complexity. Your species has been at war for over 100,000 years? More or less, though to be fair, the last 10,000 years have been pretty much non-stop. Before that, we had occasional peace treaties that lasted a few decades. These days, peace is more of a theoretical concept. Veltar, still on the arena floor where she'd left him, made a sound like a strangled whistle. Desperate, how are you not extinct? Kaeda considered this seriously. It was a fair question. Confident, we're really good at it. The roar of the crowd reached new heights as Sister Carmina stepped into the arena's preparation chamber. The walls hummed with energy field generators, and racks of standard combat blades lined the room in perfect symmetry. Each weapon gleamed with the blue shimmer of molecular sharpening technology, designed to cut through most known materials with surgical precision. Ambassador Velthar of the Tau delegation watched through the observation window, his blue-gray skin reflecting the arena lights. Your champion seems calm for someone about to face our finest warrior, he noted to the human diplomatic envoy. Commissar Thorne, resplendent in his black uniform, merely confident, smiled. Sister Carmina has faced worse than arena combat, Ambassador. Much worse. In the arena proper, the crowd of various Xenos species filled tiered seating that spiraled upward into the shadows. Felinians, with their sleek fur and predatory grace, occupied the lower levels, while the avian Kretak perched on specialized stands designed for their talons. The massive Ursid delegates took up reinforced sections, their brown fur rustling as they discussed betting odds in deep, rumbling voices. At the center of it all, the combat platform waited. A perfect circle of polished metal surrounded by energy barriers that could stop plasma fire. The rules were simple. Each combatant would select a blade weapon from the provided arsenal, and the first to yield or fall would concede defeat for their entire delegation's position in the upcoming territorial negotiations. The Tau champion, Chastel Mien, was already waiting in the arena center. His crisis suit had been removed for the ceremonial combat, revealing a lean, disciplined frame encased in form-fitting combat armor. His movements spoke of decades of training in the martial arts of the fire caste. Every gesture precise and economical. "The human delays," Mien called across the arena, his voice amplified by the stadium systems. "Does she require additional time to prepare for inevitable defeat?" The crowd murmured appreciatively at the taunt. Energy blade combat was the universal standard for honor duels among civilized species. The weapons were elegant, precise, requiring skill and finesse rather than brute force. It was the perfect embodiment of evolved warfare. Then the entry gate opposite Mien began to iris open. Sister Carmina emerged, and the arena, surprised, fell silent. She had removed her power armor, revealing the compact but muscular frame of someone who had spent decades in active combat. Her black body glove bore the scars of countless battles, and the sororitas symbol on her chest seemed to gleam with its own inner light. But it wasn't her appearance that surprised the crowd into silence. It was what she carried. Strapped across her back was something that belonged in a museum, or perhaps a nightmare. The chainsword was ancient even by imperial standards, its metal darkened by age and countless battles. The weapon was massive, nearly as tall as Carmina herself, with a blade that ended in rotating adamantine teeth designed for one purpose: to tear through anything in its path. "By the greater good," whispered Ambassador Velthar, pressing closer to the observation window. "What is that primitive thing?" Commissar Thorne's smile widened. "That, Ambassador, is Uncle Marcus's old chainsword. Carmina's great-uncle carried it during the Sabbat Worlds Crusade. 300 years of active service." The weapons master, a tall servid with elaborate antlers, stepped forward with visible confusion. "Honored human, the weapons provided meet all specifications for elegant combat." "Perhaps you did not understand the selection process?" Carmina hefted the chainsword with practiced ease, thumb finding the activation rune. The weapon growled to life, its chain teeth spinning in a blur of adamantine death. The sound echoed through the arena like the purr of some mechanical predator. "I understand perfectly," she said, her voice carrying easily across the suddenly quiet space. "You said blade weapons were permitted. This is a blade weapon." The weapons master's ears twitched, nervously. "But, honored human, the elegant forms of energy combat require—" "The Emperor protects," Carmina interrupted, settling into a combat stance that looked nothing like the refined postures taught in Xenos academies. It was the brutal, practical guard of someone who had learned to kill in the trenches of real war. And Uncle Marcus always said, "When they bring swords, you bring a chainsword." Shaz Mien recovered first, selecting an elegant energy blade from the weapon rack. The weapon hummed to life in his hands, casting blue light across his features. "Primitive technology will not save you from superior technique, human." "We'll see about that," Carmina replied. The ceremonial gong sounded, and Mien moved with liquid grace. His energy blade traced perfect arcs through the air as he advanced, each movement calculated and precise. The weapon sang as it cut through empty space, demonstrating the kind of skill that came from lifetime dedication to the martial arts. Carmina met his advance with an overhead swing that had all the subtlety of an orbital bombardment. The chainsword screamed as it carved through the air where Mien had been standing an instant before. The Tau warrior had rolled aside with impressive speed.
But his confident expression had been replaced by something approaching concern. "You fight without form," he called, circling at a safe distance. "Without discipline, crude force cannot overcome trained skill." "Tell that to the Orkwa we stopped at Quintarn," Carmina replied, reversing her grip and swinging horizontally. The Chainsword's lore filled the arena as men backflipped over the spinning teeth, landing in a perfect combat crouch. In the stands, the various alien delegates leaned forward with curious new interest. The Felinians' ears were perked forward, their hunting instincts engaged by the display of predatory combat. The massive Ursid delegates rumbled approval at the humans' aggressive tactics. "Fascinating," murmured Captain Torval of the Eldar delegation, his ancient eyes tracking every movement. "The Monkey fights like a cornered gene stealer."
No technique, but absolutely lethal within her range. Mien pressed his advantage, launching a series of rapid strikes that should have overwhelmed any opponent. His energy blade moved in a blur of blue light, each cut precise enough to disable rather than kill. It was the mark of a civilized warrior, fighting to prove superiority rather than to destroy. Carmina met each attack with brutal parries that sent sparks flying across the arena floor. Where Mien's blade was surgical precision, her chainsword was industrial destruction. The two weapons couldn't have been more different in their approach to combat. "Your reach is limited," Mien observed, scoring a shallow cut across Carmina's shoulder. "Your weapon is unwieldy. You cannot maintain this pace." "You're right," Carmina agreed, surprising him. "I can't." Then she threw the chainsword. The massive weapon spun end over end across the arena like a screaming wheel of death. Mayan dove aside, his energy blade coming up to deflect the spinning mass of metal and teeth. The impact sent him skidding across the platform, his perfect form, surprised, finally disrupted. But Carmina was already moving, closing the distance while he recovered. Her hands found the combat knife at her belt, a simple adamantine blade that looked like a child's toy compared to the elegant energy weapons surrounding them. "Impossible," Mayan gasped, bringing his energy blade up in a desperate guard. "You discarded your primary weapon." Confident, Uncle Marcus always said, "A sister of battle is never unarmed," Carmina replied, her knife work suddenly displaying the kind of brutal efficiency that the Imperium had perfected over 10 millennia of constant warfare. The crowd was on its feet now. The careful decorum of civilized combat forgotten in the face of something far more primitive and terrifying. Here was fighting as it had existed since the dawn of time, not elegant, not refined, but absolutely committed to victory at any cost. Mien fought valiantly, his superior reach and training keeping him alive as Carmina pressed her attack. But there was something unsettling about the human's approach to combat. She absorbed hits that should have disabled her, kept fighting through injuries that would have felled most species, and her aggression never flagged. "Why won't you fall?" Mien demanded, scoring another cut across her ribs. "Because the Emperor protects," Carmina replied, her knife finding the gap in his armor. "And because Uncle Marcus didn't raise any quitters." In the observation booth, Ambassador Velthar turned to Commissar Thorn with something approaching disgusted horror. "Your species? You train for this from childhood? This brutality?" "Sister Carmina was born on Valhalla," Thorn replied calmly. "Iceworld, Gravity 1.3 standard. Predators that hunt in packs and breathe frozen methane. She considers this arena combat relaxing. Down in the arena, Mayan's perfect technique was beginning to unravel. Each exchange with the human revealed new depths to her apparent madness. She fought like someone who had never heard of self-preservation, who considered mortal injury an acceptable trade for tactical advantage. "This is not how civilized beings conduct warfare," he protested, breathing hard as they circled each other. "Civilized?" Carmina laughed, the sound carrying across the suddenly quiet arena. "Brother, where I come from, civilized means you waited until the enemy was reloading before you charged." She retrieved her chainsword, and the weapon roared back to life in her hands. The sound had become somehow fearful, ominous, like the growl of a predator that had tasted blood. The crowd held its breath as the two warriors faced each other across the blood-stained arena floor. And in that moment, every xenospecies present began to understand something fundamental about humanity. They weren't just Deathworlders. They were Deathworlders who considered this fun. The arena fell silent as Lyra activated the chainsword. The ancient weapon roared to life, its blessed teeth spinning in perfect harmony despite its age. The Kethvar spectators recoiled at the sound. They had never heard anything so brutally mechanical, so utterly committed to destruction. "Throne above," Commander Vex whispered through the comm. "That's a relic chainsword. Pre-Age of Apostasy manufacture. How did a civilian get her hands on that?" Senna's ears flattened as she watched her human friend test the weapon's weight. "Lyra, perhaps we should reconsider the rules." "No," Lyra said firmly, her voice carrying across the arena with surprising authority. "I accepted this challenge according to Kethvar Honor Code. I will not dishonor my species or yours by backing down now." She looked directly at Thakmor, whose scaled features had shifted from amusement to genuine concern. "Besides, Uncle Marcus always said, a chainsword doesn't make the warrior makes the chainsword." Thakmor hefted his energy blade, its blue glow casting eerie shadows across his reptilian face. "Your primitive weapon cannot match Kethvar technology, human child." "Our energy blades can cut through your imperial armor like—" The rest of his boast was lost as Lyra moved, not with the wild charge everyone expected, but with the fluid precision of someone who had been trained by a veteran guardsman. She closed distance at an angle, forcing Thakmor to adjust his stance while keeping her chainsword's reach advantage. The first clash sent sparks flying. Energy blade met spinning teeth in a shower of light and metal fragments. Both warriors sprang apart, circling each other warily. "Impossible," High Scholar Vethka breathed. "The energy field should have disrupted that primitive weapon." Captain Doran's scarred face split into a confident smile. "That's no primitive weapon, Xenos. That's blessed adamantium teeth on a sanctified chain. Your fancy energy fields don't mean much when they meet 10,000 years of proven engineering." The combat resumed with increased intensity. Thakmor was clearly the superior warrior in terms of training and experience, but Lyra had something he couldn't account for. Pure human stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Every time he pressed an advantage, she adapted. When he tried to use his reach, she got inside his guard. When he attempted to overwhelm her with speed, she met his attacks with perfectly timed parries. "She's learning," Senna whispered in amazement. "Every exchange, she's getting better." "That's what humans do," Commander Vex explained, his augmetic eye recording every moment. "They adapt. In combat, under pressure, faster than any other species I've encountered. It's frankly terrifying. The turning point came when Thakmor, growing frustrated, made a critical error. He overextended on a killing thrust, committing too much to the attack. Lyra sidestepped, grabbed his weapon arm, and brought the chainsword's spinning teeth against his energy blade's power cell. The explosion was, surprised, spectacular. Blue energy discharged in all directions as the power cell overloaded. Thakmor was thrown backward, his weapon destroyed, while Lyra rolled with the blast and came up still holding her chainsword. The arena erupted in shocked silence. No one had ever seen an energy blade fail so catastrophically. "How?" Thakmor gasped, staring at his ruined weapon. Lyra stood over him, chainsword humming, but not threatening. "Uncle Marcus taught me that every weapon has a weakness. Your energy blades are powered by compact cells. Disrupt the cell, disable the weapon." She extended her free hand to help him up. "Good fight, though. You're definitely skilled." The gesture, helping a defeated opponent, sent ripples of confusion through the Cathvar observers. Their honor codes didn't include mercy to the defeated. "You could have killed me," Thakmor said, accepting her help despite his obvious bewilderment. "Why would I do that? This was about honor, not death." Lyra shut down the chainsword and maglocked it to her belt. "Besides, I might need allies against the real enemies out there." As if her words had summoned them, the arena's alarm systems began wailing. Emergency lights bathed everything in crimson as automated voices announced, "Multiple contact signatures detected, unknown vessels approaching system perimeter, all combat personnel to stations." The viewing platforms erupted in activity as Cathvar warriors rushed to their posts. But it was Captain Doran's reaction that caught everyone's attention. The scarred Imperial officer had gone completely still, his face pale beneath his tattoos. "Captain?" Commander Vex inquired. "What's wrong?" "Those sensor readings," Doran said slowly. "The signature pattern. I've seen it before. Cadia, Armageddon, Cronus." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Emperor preserve us all. It's a Tyrannid splinter fleet." High Scholar Vethka's translation device struggled with the unfamiliar term. "Confused? What is this classification?" "Death," Lyra said simply, her hand instinctively moving to her chainsword. "Their death incarnate. A species that exists only to consume all biological matter in the galaxy. No negotiation, no mercy, no coexistence. They just devour everything." The color drained from Senna's fur as the implications hit her. "Everything? Even Cathvar?" "Especially Cathvar," Commander Vex confirmed grimly. "They adapt by consuming genetic material. A reptilian species like yours would give them new evolutionary paths." His augmetic systems were already analyzing the sensor data. "Fleet composition suggests High Fleet Moloch. We encountered them at Quintarn. Nasty bastards with a preference for urban warfare adaptations." Thakmor, still recovering from his defeat, looked between the humans in growing alarm. "How many of these Tyrannids?" Captain Doran studied the tactical display with practiced eyes. "Bioship count suggests a medium splinter fleet, maybe 50,000 initial assault organisms, with capacity for geometric growth once they establish biomass collection points." He paused, letting the numbers sink in. "Your system has 3 inhabited worlds, combined population approximately 4 billion. If they establish themselves..." "We need to evacuate," High Scholar Vethka declared. Immediately, all civilian populations must be— No, Lyra interrupted, her voice carrying surprising authority for someone so young. Evacuation is what they expect. It's what feeds them. Running populations, panic, disorder, it's exactly what makes biomass easy to harvest. She looked around at the assembled aliens, her expression grim but determined. We fight, here, now. Make them pay for every world, every city, every life. Child, Thakmor said gently, you defeated me in single combat, but these numbers are irrelevant, Captain Doran finished. She's right. I've seen what happens when you run from Tyranids. They hunt you down anyway, but now you're scattered, disorganized, easy prey. His scarred face hardened with resolve.
Better to make a stand. Better to hurt them so badly they look for easier feeding grounds elsewhere. Commander Vex was already accessing Imperial tactical databases. I'm transmitting Tyranid countermeasure protocols to your defense networks. Fair warning, they're not pleasant. Scorched earth tactics. Deny them biomass at all costs. What does this mean? Senna asked quietly. It means, Lyra said, checking her chainsword's power cell, that your honor duels just became real combat. Life or death. No rules except survival. She looked directly at Thakmor. Still think humans are primitive? Before he could answer, the arena's massive doors burst open. Kethvar military commanders rushed in, their usually composed demeanors shattered by fear. Behind them came something that made everyone freeze in terror. A Kethvar soldier, but wrong. Horribly wrong. His scales had taken on a sickly purple sheen, and additional limbs had sprouted from his torso. Most disturbing of all, his eyes held no intelligence, only the mindless hunger of the hive mind. First contact protocol already breached, the creature hissed in a voice that was simultaneously Kethvar and utterly alien. Genetic sampling complete. Adaptation initiated. Resistance is futile. You will be consumed. The transformed Kethvar lunged with inhuman speed and strength. Thakmor, still unarmed from his duel, could only raise his hands defensively. Death seemed certain until Lyra's chainsword roared to life, intercepting the creature in mid-leap. Blessed adamantium teeth tore through adapted flesh, sending ichor spraying across the arena floor. Well, Lyra said, revving the chainsword as more hybrid screams echoed from the corridors beyond. Looks like the real fight just started. The Kytherian Blade Master's plasma sword hummed with deadly energy as it circled Lyra, its reptilian eyes gleaming with confident, predatory confidence. Around the arena, thousands of alien spectators leaned forward in anticipation. The human girl looked impossibly small against her towering opponent, clutching what appeared to be some primitive mechanical weapon. Your crude metal will not save you, warm blood, the Kytherian hissed, raising its glowing blade. Prepare to join your pathetic species in extinction. Lyra's grip tightened on the chainsword's handle. She could feel Uncle Marcus's presence somehow, as if the weapon carried his unwavering faith. For the Emperor, she whispered. Then louder, the Emperor protects. She pulled the activation cord. The chainsword roared to life with a sound that made every alien in the arena flinch. The blessed ceramite teeth spun in a blur of adamantine fury, each one consecrated with the blood of 1,000 enemies. Sacred oils leaked from its housing, filling the air with the scent of sanctified machinery.
The Kytherian's confident expression faltered. This was no primitive weapon. This was a relic of humanity's most brutal wars, a tool of righteous slaughter that had tasted the blood of demons themselves. "What sorcery is this?" it snarled, but its voice betrayed uncertainty. Lyra didn't answer with words. She charged. The plasma blade met the chainsword in a shower of sparks and fury. The energy weapon, designed to slice through modern armor like silk, screamed as it encountered something its creators never anticipated. A weapon built not just for war, but for faith itself. The chainsword's teeth, blessed by tech priests and sanctified with holy oils, bit deep into the plasma field, disrupting its molecular cohesion. The Kytherian stumbled backward, confusion replacing arrogance. Its perfect weapon, symbol of technological superiority, was being devoured by what appeared to be crude machinery. But Lyra could see the truth that her opponent could not. The chainsword wasn't just a weapon. It was a prayer made manifest, each roaring tooth a hymn of destruction. She pressed her attack with the aggressive fury of humanity unleashed. The Blade Master was faster, stronger, more experienced, but it had never faced a creature that simply refused to acknowledge the concept of defeat. Where it struck with precision, Lyra answered with raw determination. Where it danced with elegant technique, she responded with the brutal pragmatism of a species that had survived 10,000 years of constant war. The crowd's cheers turned to confused murmurs as their champion found itself being pushed back. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. The human should have been cut down in moments, her primitive weapon no match for Kytherian superiority. But the chainsword sang its mechanical hymn, and with each swing, Lyra felt Uncle Marcus's teachings flow through her. Not just the combat forms he'd drilled into her, but the deeper truth he'd tried to convey. That humanity's strength lay not in superior technology or perfect strategy, but in the confident, absolute refusal to accept defeat. "Impossible!" the Kytherian hissed as its plasma blade flickered and sparked, damaged by repeated contact with the chainsword's blessed teeth. "You are nothing! Your species is dying!" "Yeah?" Lyra Playful grinned, her face streaked with sweat and sacred oil. "Then why are you the one backing away?" She feinted left and struck right, the chainsword's adamantine teeth finding purchase on the Kytherian's armor. The creature screamed as blessed metal parted its scales like paper. This was what the weapon had been designed for, to cut through the enemies of mankind with the inevitability of divine judgment. The Blade Master's movements became desperate, its perfect form abandoned in favor of wild swings. But Lyra had been raised in the slums of an imperial hive city, where survival meant fighting with whatever you could find. Uncle Marcus had simply refined that instinct, teaching her to channel her fury into focused destruction. The end came suddenly. The Kytherian overextended, confident that its reach advantage would keep it safe. Lyra ducked under its swing and brought the chainsword up in a brutal arc that would have made her uncle proud. The blessed weapon carved through armor, flesh, and bone with equal ease, its machine spirit singing with satisfaction as it tasted alien blood. The Blade Master fell, its perfect form crashing to the arena floor in a spreading pool of ichor. The crowd fell silent, unable to process what they had witnessed. A human child had just defeated their greatest warrior with what they believed to be primitive technology. Lyra stood over her fallen opponent, the chainsword still growling in her hands. She raised it high, addressing the stunned audience with words that echoed across the arena. "The Emperor protects! Humanity endures!" In the VIP box, the Kytherian overlord's claws dug furrows in the arm of its throne. "This changes nothing," it snarled to its advisors.
One victory does not. A new sound cut through the arena, the distinctive whine of Imperial Navy engines. Through the dome's transparent sections, massive ships could be seen dropping out of the warp, their hulls bristling with weapons. At their head flew the banner of the Ultramarines. "My lord," one advisor whispered, its voice trembling, "our scouts report 17 Imperial battle groups moving into the system. They're demanding the immediate release of all human prisoners." The Overlord's blood, fearful, ran cold. The stories were true then. Humanity didn't abandon its own. Even a single lost child was worth a war to them. On the arena floor, Lyra looked up at the ships and smiled. Uncle Marcus had always said the Emperor watched over his faithful. She raised the chainsword one final time, its roar joining with the thunder of Imperial engines as humanity came to reclaim its own. The age of Kytherian dominance was ending. The Deathworlders had come home.